Hello, US 101 History, a late start class. Welcome to week 8. I hope you're having a great Easter if you celebrate the Easter celebration. I hope you had a great Passover if you're from the Jewish religious tradition. Some Jehovah's Witnesses celebrated their memorial service as well. So this has been uh, different religions doing things a little differently, but also kind of connected to the same history. Interesting. Some of you are not doing any of it all. That's also okay. So but I hope you had a great one, depending on your, background and what you do. So, anyhow, having said that, look at us. We're close to the end now. We're in the U.S. Civil War, and you'll notice that this is going to act like a normal week now. So we have a lot of information, but it's not broken up into two parts. You'll also notice you have more extra credit. So I kind of, reduced the load at the end. I started like the way that I started off and like kind of went harder. We had more to do in the middle, and now we're kind of just coasting on. We're doing a lot of information still, but not broken up into two parts. So I hope you appreciate that. So this leads me to say this before I do some important sets of information that just to cover and a summary. Uh, Late work. Okay, we're at that point where, because we're almost done. Look, I've had a rule that I haven't stuck with. I've been lenient on. If you look at my syllabus, any work that's late, so if you're 8 hours late, prior to the 8 hours, you can turn in the late work. That's what it says. Without asking for permission, no penalties. So if it was due on a Sunday and you turn in the paper at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, you didn't have to explain yourself. My official policy has always been, although I have not been sticking by this, is that if you turn in late work without asking for permission, it's automatically rejected. So in other words, after the 8 hours, you have to contact me and ask for permission for late work, okay? This is strictly going to apply right now. If we've been communicating and you have late work, and I've already been allowing you to turn in late work, here's what I need you to do. I need you to start communicating with me on where you're at with this, because I can't take an entire, like half a semester's worth of work the last week of class. So at this point, if we haven't had a recent conversation, ultimately, if you've been backed up and you're needing to turn in over 4 assignments, you need to contact me before you turn anything more than that. I need to make sure I can turn it in now. So we need to be in communication right now. I want to help you. I want to help any of you that's been struggling, and almost everybody that's communicated with me has been struggling with real problems. But we're also in a time crunch where I'm limited in what I can do. So please just keep that in mind. So, okay, so and then write to me directly in Canvas. Sometimes students write me on my email, and I overlook it. I get a lot more. I get so much email, and if you write in the Canvas, hopefully I can respond right away. If you see that I'm not responding right away, and you write to me, keep writing to me. The squeaky wheel gets fixed, as they say. I don't get upset about it. I have a lot of students, and this is the time where people are all like trying to catch up and communicate with me. So I gotta, it's just a bit difficult juggle. So keep that in mind. Okay. So hopefully that's clear on the late work aspect. Okay. All right. So let's take a look a little bit about where we were at and where we're going, and why I think this is one of the most important weeks, in my opinion, for this class. So we went over the Nat Turner Rebellion and John Brown. And these were violent, disturbing, complex events that are linked to the topic of enslavement of people and the issue of slavery in American discourse. Look, slavery is a violent institution, and resisting slavery has been violent. Now, tragically, it's already a tragic topic. Most nations that had slavery ended it by voting. Canada did that. The UK, even South Korea, or I should say all of Korea. So remember, slavery is not unique to the United States, but it is, to me, telling that we're one of the nations that are part of the European project that couldn't just let the institution go in the way that other Western nations did, and even non-Western nations. And so this leads me to another point. If you ask many Americans, not just in the South, if the Civil War was about slavery, if that was the main reason, period, you do not get the answer that is historically accurate. You get some sort of other thing, states' rights. And I talked about this in one of my other announcements, so I just want to mention this. So I was mentioning that I had this friend who challenged me on this, and I saw a video that was over an hour by a man with a PhD in economics, and he was a libertarian trying to argue that it was about tariffs. Not once did he refer to the documentation that the Southern governments actually posted, saying they declared in their declarations of secession why they're leaving, creating the Confederacy. It's all about slavery, period. You look at their Constitution. I have a clip of the Confederate Constitution. It was about slavery. And yet something so clear in the primary source documentation. There is no other alternative explanation to this. The documentation is clear. It only becomes murky if we remove the speech by the only vice president of the Confederate States, Alexander Stephens' cornerstone speech, and if we negate the declarations that the Southern leaderships of each state said why they're leaving. If you take those away, you can start playing around with these other possibilities, tariffs or some other rights. But like, what are the rights that they were talking? And they say it was about states' rights. Well, what right? It was about slavery, and again, the North had the same kind of views about race as the South. The issue was not a battle about racism. I'm not even sure if anybody even was talking about the term racism. That's been something I've been wanting to research, is when did we even talk more about the idea of racism to begin with? The real issue, though, was about the institution of slavery itself. Okay. And as you'll learn in this discussion, in the history, that part of the reason why that we're not aware of the total clarity of the Civil War being about slavery is that the South had political leaders that really did their best to try to instantly rewrite this history, and it has been bought into a lot even within the North. Now, I'm not talking mess on Southern culture in general. My grandma was a Southerner. My grandpa was raised in California. My family comes from both branches, and I looked in the history, and I'm pretty sure that I've had family that fought on both sides, like many Americans that are coming from white European settlement here. But this needs to be understood. I mean, we're having we had a lot of statues come down and names changed, and now the current government of the United States has wanted to re-implement Confederate soldiers to be celebrated. And the question is, why? And I just think this important. This whole idea of our culture wars here. This shouldn't be a debate. Listen to me right now. This should not be a debate. And when you're going to see this information, I think you're going to see it's pretty clear as well. And if you feel like you can still make an alternative explanation to it with the documentation that we have, I would love to hear it. You will not be face any kind of grade consequences for that. I actually just would love to hear like what you would have to say about it. So, okay. So having said that, I also incorporate the role again of Native Americans into the Civil War. So you'll notice I actually teach this in a very different way than many other classes. Look, there's other professors do a much better job of going over all the battles. There's a lot of important historical characters in the U.S. Civil War that I'm, bypassing. But I feel like because our country is so divided on how to understand our own history, I thought the bigger macro questions about like what this all means needed to be incorporated. I wanted to show that incorporating non-white people into the discourse of U.S. history isn't just some woke thing. It's the only way to actually understand the history for what it is. To see that Grant had a side, one of his right hand man was a Native American, Seneca tribe, Ely Parker. The last Confederate general to surrender is a Cherokee. So, what do we make of all of that? It has to be incorporated. This is a very strong set of factors that need to be incorporated into our history, right? So, look at that. And then I also talk about just at the beginning the Taiping Rebellion and the way that Egypt was affected by the U.S. Civil War. The reason why I put the Taiping Rebellion is that in China actually had 20 million people die, a huge civil war in which a man thought he was Jesus' brother and incorporated Christianity into Chinese religion and had his heavenly army that actually they like read the Bible and were simultaneously like into this wild kind of mixture of Chinese mythology and symbols. Really amazing and interesting history taking place around the same time as our Civil War. Just thought you would want to learn about this little known but important history from China. And then the way that the U.S. Civil War even affected things going on in places like Egypt, which you probably were not even thinking about, right? So I incorporated that. I meant to get my book out. I have like a huge book I was just going to show you, but you can see in the links. Karl Marx, the founder of communism, I'm having you read some links from him. He wrote a lot on the U.S. Civil War. It's a book about this thick. He wrote a lot. And he even considered maybe immigrating to Texas at one point with there's a large German expat community that were settling in Texas. So think about how interesting that would have been had Karl Marx immigrated to Texas. And, I wonder what the politics of his descendants would have been, huh? In any case, I hope you also find that interesting. I remember I had talked to this one gentleman who spent many years in the military. Very nice guy. But he told me, when the Soviet Union was created, Karl Marx sat back and he said, "Oh my God, what have I done?" And I said to him, "Man, you know that Karl Marx was long dead, that he wasn't alive during the Soviet, the actual creation of communism in Russia." And he was just quiet and shocked. This is again where history is important, to know history. We have all these anecdotal things floating around. It's just good to get our history right? So on that note, please contact me with any questions or thoughts. I wish you all a great week, and we'll be in touch.